Well, hello everybody. I'm out here in the rain, sitting on my front porch. It's pretty nice having a front porch to sit on and just watch the rain. Well, without further ado, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that's been weighing on me pretty heavily, and what that is independence. We're in August, but thinking of some July 4th vibes here. Um, in July, we celebrate our independence from Great Britain. And we say, oh, yeah, America's free and so forth. But it's not. It's not nearly as free as it once was. So in 1913, um, there was a bill passed. And essentially, what it did was it created the National Reserve. But in doing so, it also levied a tax on land. And so you can never own your land completely free. Even if you've paid it off, you're still paying tax every year. So that forces people into using the money system that the government has created. And I'm not talking conspiracies here, I'm talking the truth. The truth is you are forced, if you live in America, to participate in our monetary system. So, what does that mean? Well, what that means is you can never truly be free. You were told how the medium of exchange will be and what that medium of exchange will be. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's a book out there called How to Find Freedom in an Unfree World, um, and it's enlightening. But what's really enlightening to me is realizing that, you know, I'm really into the homesteading thing. I started out as just a straight up prepper, and I went from prepping to homesteading. And from homesteading, I would say I found myself at a point of enlightenment. And so, what I mean by that is when you're prepping, you're collecting guns, um, you're thinking of scenarios that may happen, and that naturally leads you to homesteading and not having debt through people like Dave Ramsey. So, as you homestead, you start to get introduced to, making sure that you're out of debt and so forth. I kind of did it a little out of order. I was always debt adverse, and then I got into prepping, and then I got into homesteading. But anyway, you can never completely annihilate your risk of having something bad happen to you. However, you can be ready when something bad happens to you or your family. And this is what so many people miss, okay? So I went to the University of Virginia's College of Wise for undergrad, and they teach you pretty much Jeffersonian beliefs, in my opinion, and that's been wonderful, okay? The agrarian lifestyle, the educated farmer citizen. Well, that's great, but you can't make a living farming. You can't make your living on the homestead. But that said, you can create most of the amount of food you need to feed yourself. I mean, you could do it all, but the return on investment after, say 85, 90% just isn't there. I mean, to make wheat into flour um, by hand, not using electrical things, into the off-grid and homesteading type movement. It's just it. I mean, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So that said, some of those things you can offset your food by create food security for your family through the practice of homesteading. So what? How do you really become free? Well, you become free through owning the means of production. What do I mean by that? I mean that you simply own a stream of income, whether that be a business, whether that be your own skill, whether that be a rental portfolio, whatever that means. But if you go and work at a 9 to 5 job or whatever job you're working where you have a supervisor, at some point you're going to disagree with that supervisor. It's inevitable. Now you see this red beard here. I'm of Scotch-Irish heritage, and I don't do too well with being told what to do all the time. Now, I'm lucky because my heart is in the right place, and I try to do the right thing. And that's my main objective, is doing the right thing and doing the job I'm hired to do, and making sure that I provide value for my employer. Not everybody's heart's in the right place. But that said, I don't deal well with people thinking they can talk to me any old kind of way. I don't do well with disrespect. And there are some people who will disrespect you just because of your position within that organization. They don't think past the organization. They don't think, oh, well, me and him meeting in a Walmart parking lot, I'm no higher or better or different than he is. They don't think that way. Most of the people who are the types to climb the corporate ladder do not think that way. They covet those positions. I do not covet those positions. They think of themselves as an authority. Most of the time it's quite ridiculous, honestly, but it's vanity is what it is, okay? And I don't placate to vanity. I just don't. I don't do well with that. I'm going to do the job to the best of my ability that you're paying me. Me and you have a contract. You pay me. I give you time and energy. Boom. That's the end of it, okay? That doesn't mean I don't do a good job. That doesn't mean I don't care. What that means is I don't care what your position is. You're going to treat me with respect, whether you want to or not. Otherwise, you're going to get the same in return, whether you want to or not. And that's fine. But if you take that position, you must own the means of production. Because if you don't have a boss or a supervisor who can stand back and see that argument, you're in trouble. So you've got to get your stuff right before you can take that position. And how do you get those things right? Okay, security. You have the guns in case something does happen. Somebody comes and tries to rob your place. War breaks out on American soil. Whatever it is, you have your guns. You have your security. What else? You have a means of production for your own food. Okay, so you want to be able to create some of your own food. You minimize your bills and utilities. You minimize all those bills, which means you pay off your debt. You don't have debt on your vehicles. You don't have debt on your house. You don't have student debt. You just don't have debt. Okay, it's bad. It is bad. So if you're growing some of your own food, if you've got your security handled, if you've got your bills minimized, then what else do you need? Okay, now you could have solar panels to cover your power, but that's really just a prepaid power bills, really all that is. But if you want to own the means of production on your solar, fine. If you want to, you could take this as much as you want to. And I would love to have solar panels. It's just not been in the cards. I'd love to do a full-on off-grid cabin on my property, and I'm going to do so at some point, Lord willing. But right now I garden. I have goats. I have chickens. I have ducks. I have all kinds of animals, and I love them. Love doing it. Me and my wife can grape jelly. We're doing our own things. We're growing fruit trees. We're growing vines. We're growing everything. Some of the things are more worth it than others, but once you own those means of production, then you have to own the means of production to pay your taxes, to pay for the things that you can't. just trade for. And arguably, you could trade for everything, but is that a good use of your time? So, own a rental property or two, own a couple rental properties. Have a little side business where you fix things. If you're in this world, you know how to fix things. Um, Create a means to produce the income in the medium of exchange. By this I mean the U.S. dollar in this certain circumstance that is required of your government. And so if you're going to collect, make something that is useful. So a rental property in good shape, it's going to have use. It's going to have monetary value. You being able to fix things and having knowledge, very specified knowledge that other people do not have, has a monetary value and can create monetary value for you indefinitely. Now, a house may burn down, your skills will not. Now, this is not an advertisement telling you to go to college. This is, do not, no. I'm telling you, get on YouTube and learn something and do it. Or if you have to, go to college. But I wouldn't pay for anything that I couldn't afford and say that it's an investment. You can learn things without paying for it most of the time, or paying much. I mean, you can buy a book, pay $30 or something, and then learn that skill for the most part through practice. But anyway, so we've got our food covered, we've got our housing covered. Once it's paid for, it's paid for. You just got to pay the real estate taxes. Live in a place where the real estate taxes are low. Live in a place that you can grow some of your food. I choose the Appalachian Mountains. They're great. Great weather, great soils. Well, okay soils. Great opportunity to not pay a lot of taxes, and a great opportunity to have a house that's paid for and live in a place to where you can actually do things. Learn some mechanic skills. Fix your own vehicles. That's going to save you a ton of money. But doing these things all together create a position to where people really can't tell you what to do. And that's freedom. Now, they can tell you what to do all day long. You don't have to listen. You don't have to deal with stuff. And if you got somebody with a smart mouth that wants to, that's over you in some capacity in some organization, then you can get right back to them, or not, or you can choose not to. And there's really not a lot they can do to you. There's not. Okay? But some of those people in those positions, if that's your only lifeline, if that's your only way of making income, then you're in a tough position. That's no way to live. You're a slave. You're a slave. There's nothing else. I mean, you're a slave. That's all there is to it. If you got a bunch of debt and you're going to work just to paddle on that wheel, you're not growing some of your own food. You're not out here working a piece of ground. You're a slave. They can talk to you any way they want to. They can deal with you anyway, and you just have to deal with it until you can find another job. Have you some savings, save up you some money, and if something happens, you're good. That's with work. Now, what happens if this country goes on a spiral with spending, i.e., the Biden economy? Own the means of producing your own food and be practiced at it and lean into that. So recently I've been leaning a lot more into my food production because the prices of groceries are astronomical. So if I can produce more of my own food, that's more money I get to keep in my pocket. So make a small garden when Trump's in office, so you know what the skills are, so you can have a huge garden when Biden's in office, for example. It is what it is, and everybody's gonna, you're gonna roast me. Oh, it's not Biden's fault. Da 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 da. He is the commander in chief, or so he claims, and he is the one who sets monetary policy. Oh, the Federal Reserve does that. No, he is the one who influences monetary policy. So, and you can just look at gas prices. Look at it when Obama was in office, when he was the vice president. Look at it when Trump was in office. Then look at it when he came back into office. And I know correlation's not causation, but there's only so many coincidences. So, anyway, I won't get on that too hard, but, sometimes you're just wrong when you want to defend somebody like that. And I hate that for you if you're one of these believers in Joe Biden, but he's just wrong as far as monetary policy goes. So, what can you do to get through it? I don't care too much who's president as far as that goes. I mean, we're always going to have some kind of trouble. When Trump was in office, this whole COVID thing started, and he started the overreaction to that, and I'm not denying that. But when that went on, what did we do, right? So when there wasn't toilet paper on the shelves, did you have a plan? That's all there is to it. Okay, and I know it don't sound extraordinary, but toilet paper's not an emergency. Us thinking that toilet paper's an emergency is the biggest joke I've ever seen in my life. Get you a wet rag and wipe your butt. Wash your wet rags. Okay? I mean, it's nasty. Ooh. Wipe your butt with something and move on. You'll be okay. Hate that for you. So, anyway, being prepared for things is very important, but you cannot foresee everything that may happen. But you can kind of look back at history and see what has happened. You can even see pandemics in the past. The flu, when it first happened in the early 1900s. You can look back and you can see what happened and how people got through it and what preps you need to have in place. And one of those is food. Another one of those, in the Great Depression is housing. Food and housing. What are your basic needs? Go back to that. How can you provide for those? And how can you keep the government as far away from you as you can to where they can't tell you what you're doing on your place? And that's by having it paid off and owning the means of production enough to produce whatever tax liability you have. So, while I used to be a hardcore homesteader and believe I could create all my own food and all my own stuff, I was even down to the point of trying to create my own clothing out of, wool on that I created on my farm and stuff like that. And sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Create yourself a skill. Create a skill. Hone in a skill for yourself. And then and make sure it's a skill that's not dependent upon the government. So if you're a grant writer, for example, that is a skill that's dependent upon government bureaucracy. Plumbing is not a skill dependent upon government bureaucracy. Plumbing's been around since ancient times, ancient Roman history at least. At least the concepts of it are, and once you become a plumber, you can understand the concepts. See, even in this homesteading lifestyle, you got to be able to go buy PVC pipes. And if you can't buy PVC pipes because you don't trade in cash, because that's the only thing people are selling it in or whatever, then your homestead's going to have a hard time. So you need to have a mix. And I've learned that over a long period of time. And a lot of people, I thought I was right and everybody else was wrong when I've heard people telling me that. But I was wrong. And here I am 15 years into this experiment. And I have learned to be very happy with where I am. So I started off as a young man shooting for the stars of complete independence. And I've learned that just isn't feasible. It is, but it would take until I'm 70 years old and not having any health problems for me to then live 5 years and then get health problems maybe independently. so I could live 5 years independently. And it'd be the hardest 5 years of my life because I'd have to do literally everything. I burn wood. Okay, that cuts down on my heating price. And if the power's out, I've got wood. But for me to produce all my own power would cost at least $30,000 in a solar setup. That not to include the battery banks. So and the generator backup, and then if the generator backup needs to be employed, where am I going to get the propane, the diesel, or the gasoline? So that's not independence, but owning a means of production is. So think about it. Think about honing in your skills, buying assets that create money, and then that combined with your homesteading and getting the bigger things like the raising the chickens and the raising the goats and stuff, those sort of things combined with your means of production creates true independence whenever debt is not involved. And that's what I've found. So learn from me. Don't take 15 years to learn it yourself. And enjoy life a little bit. Enjoy life. Do this stuff and then go out and enjoy your life, and you won't regret it.